Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos. Para una mejor experiencia, les solicitamos por favor que mantengan sus micrófonos muteados. Todo el material que presentaremos puede ser utilizado para difusión y promoción. Muchas gracias y que disfruten del evento.
Quizá no soy la mejor persona para dirigir esto.
¿Para dirigir la empresa?
Sí.
Y a veces es difícil cuando los roles no están claros.
Esto es un caos.
Cuando parece que todo puede ponerse un poco peor,
¡Sal de mi oficina!
es mejor llamar a Marcus.
Parece que es posible hacer algunas mejoras.
Sí, escúchenlo.
¿Tenemos un trato?
El Socio, nueva temporada, por History Channel.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y cada uno de ustedes. Estamos aquí en History, felices de darles la bienvenida a un nuevo evento virtual de prensa. En esta ocasión estamos de lujo, porque estamos dando la bienvenida a nada más y nadie menos que a Marcus Lemonis. Pero antes, quiero presentarles, sin más, a nuestro vicepresidente, señor VP, Miguel Brailovsky. Miguel, bienvenido.
Hola César, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy. Y creo que antes de hablar de esta octava temporada del Socio y de nuestro gran personaje del día, Marcus Lemonis, tenemos una novedad, porque el día de hoy History está cambiando su imagen en pantalla. Después de 20 años de convivir con la H dorada, hoy la H dorada se renueva, se reinventa y queremos darles un adelanto exclusivo de lo que a partir del día de hoy va a ser la nueva imagen de History Channel a través de todas sus plataformas. Si lo podemos ver, este es un poco el nuevo look que estamos estrenando el día de hoy, con la certeza de que muchas veces para que las marcas mantengan su esencia hace falta esta renovación periódica y hace falta esta adaptación. Es una forma de cambiar las hojas pero no las raíces, como decimos siempre. Esta es una imagen más actualizada que responde un poco más a criterios estéticos de hoy, pero que es una manera de mantener intacto esa propuesta y ese compromiso con un entretenimiento inteligente, basado en esa conexión que tanto nos apasiona del presente con el pasado. Así que, habiendo presentado nuestra nueva H dorada, espero que les guste, vamos a hablar de Marcus Lemonis y de nuestro lanzamiento de la octava temporada. Hay pocas series, no solo en History, sino en general en la televisión y lo que nosotros llamamos Factual Entertainment, que hayan capturado tan intensamente la conexión emocional entre los personajes y la audiencia. Y eso es algo que nosotros hemos descubierto desde muy temprano, cuando nuestros primeros super hits del terreno de los realities, como El precio de la historia o Cazadores de tesoros, más allá de sus temáticas, empezaron a conectar emocionalmente a la gente con sus personajes. Y en este caso, aunque la temática del Socio tiene mucho que ver con esta idea de los negocios, del mundo de los negocios que tienen también El precio de la historia y Cazadores de tesoros, Marcus Lemonis se ha instalado como un prócer entre los emprendedores de todo el mundo y es visto no solo del lado del entretenimiento, sino también del lado educativo de lo que representa alguien con su visión para la gente que aspira a emprender y a entender un poco las bases fundamentales de lo que es tener un negocio. Para nosotros fue una combinación perfecta, esta idea de los negocios ya plasmados en 2 o 3 de los más grandes hits de History desde que lanzamos el canal, y por otro lado esta idea de los grandes personajes que tienen una empatía increíble con la audiencia. Y Marcus Lemonis, más allá de ser sinónimo de sabiduría en los negocios, ha tocado el corazón de la audiencia en América Latina. Así que yo no quiero entretenerlos mucho, creo que es apasionante escucharlo a Marcus, y antes de hablar del programa en sí, vamos a conocer, César, si están de acuerdo, un poco más de cerca al señor Marcus Lemonis.
Video, por favor.
Describiré El Socio en pocas palabras. Se trata de un programa en el que me convierto en inversionista, alguien dispuesto a ayudar pequeños negocios que se encuentran en problemas. Tienen problemas financieros, problemas entre los socios, la familia está desmoronándose.
Les confié la gerencia.
¡Eso
Por
no
eso.
es justo!
¿De qué rayos hablas?
¡No te atrevas a!
No quiero escucharte.
Mi papel va más allá de invertir capital y escribir un cheque. Debo convertirme en un compañero para ayudarlos a tener éxito, no solo financiero, sino también social. Ayudo a que se lleven mejor, que se desempeñen y trabajen mucho mejor. He invertido $20 millones de mi propio dinero. No de una televisora, ni de un banco, de mi dinero. También desde que comenzó el programa, yo creo que he invertido aproximadamente $1 millón de mi bolsillo. Verán, esto no es un programa de televisión. Yo solo vivo mi vida y permito que las cámaras me sigan. Eso es muy diferente. El programa El Socio en realidad es un testimonio de mi vida. Cuando era niño tuve muchos problemas para relacionarme con los demás y descubrir mi camino. Al crecer fui descubriendo que era muy bueno con los números y con las matemáticas y era bueno entendiendo a los demás. Nadie me regaló el dinero que tengo hoy, trabajé por él, pero no es tan importante para mí. Yo lo veo de la siguiente manera: el dinero que tengo hoy es una herramienta y lo que importa es lo que hago con esa herramienta. De verdad me motiva la habilidad de tener un impacto y ayudar a los demás. Suelo decirle a las personas en el programa que para poder reparar sus negocios tendré que hacer una cirugía, pero sin administrarles anestesia. Les va a doler mucho, pero si ellos confían en mí y confían en el proceso, al final podrán salir sanos del quirófano. Sin embargo, si no confían en el proceso, no podré hacer la cirugía ni controlar ese resultado. Y en algunos casos, no sobrevivirán.
Well, now, Marcus Lemonis.
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm excited that we're starting another season. The El Socio is huge, and I'm super grateful for all of the lessons we're trying to teach.
That's great. We want to know, how do you choose a case or a business? How you choose them? How do you choose the business that you're going to invest the money or going to be featured in the series?
I think ultimately what I'm looking to do is find opportunities to teach a lesson and to have other business owners around the world understand what are the things that they need to do or not do to be successful. And I think over the years, we've really struggled to tell every single story that's out there. So when I'm looking for different businesses that are applying, whether it's a bad partnership or a bad relationship or anything, and that people are walking away with something that they can be inspired by from.
What if you want to portray the profit or el socio in numbers? How much money have you invested and how many business have you saved?
Well, I've invested more than I should have. We'll start with that. Way more than I should have. I think I'm probably over the course since the beginning, and we've all been partners together with History Channel for almost 8 years now, about $70 million. There's days that I wake up and I scratch my head a little bit wondering if every deal was right. And I think the most important thing is that it's important to know as a business owner or as a person that wants to own a business that not every decision you're going to make is going to work out. And it's okay for me to have people see when things don't work out, when I fail, when I make mistakes, and when they work. My definition of success really isn't economic exclusively. And so businesses growing and the people that own them growing is equally as important to me than anything else. But we've had some real good wins for sure.
The pandemic have redefined everything that we know. How the pandemic have affected the business, and if you have any tips that you can share with us, it will be very welcome.
Yeah, the pandemic has affected every business in the world. And unfortunately, the smaller the business, the more impacted because it has limited resources. But I'm happy to tell you that the smaller businesses have thrived more recently. As people are coming back, I think consumers overall have a different mindset about who they want to do business with. I think lastly, and maybe most importantly, if you own a business business today, what the PIC should have taught you is that you have to have really good technology in your business, no matter how small it is. So if you're running a flower shop or a bike shop or a bakery or a restaurant or a plumbing shop, you have to have the way that consumers can communicate with you that isn't solely based on being in person. We've learned about delivery. We've learned about remote installation. We've learned about shipping and the internet.
You have invested a lot of money, more than you want to admit. So,
yes, more than I want to admit.
Which business is more profitable? What success stories do you remember the most? And which stories you want to forget about it?
Probably the same ones that you see week in and week out. And I think we aired our first episode on history last week, correct? I think we've already aired one.
Yes.
So it was probably, I'm assuming that it was the pizza shop episode. I don't know for sure. But as business owners or as consumers, you know what business probably works, what probably doesn't. And it's really circled around the kind of people you're dealing with. In the premiere episode this season, it was one of those ones where it wasn't a great idea for anybody to be in business. And it's important for me to show people these are the kind of businesses you should invest in, and these are the kind of businesses you should not invest in. And so I urge people to use me as a bit of a test to see what kind. The ones that have worked more than anything the year that have integrity. They don't necessarily understand every single part of their business. They operate with a good conscience, good morals, good decision making. They treat their employees right. They treat their customers right. When you see that not happen, you can pretty much put your money down on the blackjack table that it's not going to work out for me either. The benefit you have as a viewer is that you can see things differently than I see. Because you can get a sense. I'm in the middle of the fire.
Absolutely. You're in the middle of the fire for sure. So we want to know.
I can see you.
Can you share with us which reasons, why do we have to watch season 8? What's so good about season 8?
I think what I tried to do differently in season 8 and really understanding that every business doesn't need money to solve. Some need education, you need structure, sometimes you need discipline. And over the years, I've noticed that I get myself burned a lot when I jump to decisions too quickly. And so I'm trying to use season 8 as a guide, both for me and for everybody else, despacio. You can move a little slower and maybe come out with a better outcome. And I think you'll see that this season.
We also understand that you're working right now on season 9. So tell us what we should expect on season 9.
Well, we have put the show on pause for right now. We're not working on season 9. I'm actually working on a new show for HGTV on renovating homes and having people understand that business in their home is more important than business in business. So because of the pandemic, we have taken a pause on season 9.
Excellent. So now, if you're okay with it, we are going to open the questions and answers from our journalists, our media journalists from Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and so on. Mariana, ¿me ayudas con las preguntas?
Yes, Cesar, we're gonna start with Mariana Fonseca from Infomoney, Brazil.
Hi again, Mr. Lemonis. Again, thank you for your time. I'm Mariana Fonseca, a journalist for the Brazilian entrepreneurship brand Do Zero ao Topo. And I think a lot of Brazilian entrepreneurs would like to ask you two things. First, what is your evaluation on the Brazilian market in terms of business creation? Does it have more obstacles or more opportunities? And secondly, is there any advice you would give specifically for Brazilian entrepreneurs?
I think the first question is that I think if you really study the world, you understand the opportunity and the growth opportunity in Brazil is phenomenal. I think the biggest concern is that I don't really understand how the regulatory process works in Brazil like it works in the States in terms of, the ability to start things and secure funding and the regulatory process around it. But what I do know for sure, my best advice to entrepreneurs is to really invest more into supply chain and into technology for the business. And a little bit of study that I've done is that Brazil may be a little further behind than it should be in terms of entrepreneurs embracing what's called CRMs, which is managing customer data, technology and supply chain, which is coming up with alternative methods to deliver products and services to people. But in terms of the size of the market, if there was any market in the world that somebody should look at in terms of its growth opportunity, Brazil is definitely in the top 10, no doubt about it. In terms of giving advice to entrepreneurs, it wouldn't matter what country you were from. The advice should be the same. You really do have to go in with this mindset that it's a risk when you get into business, and you got to have a plan, and you got to have the financial resources to succeed, but you also have to do something that you like. And I think what we're seeing through the pandemic is that people have decided once and for all that if they don't like it, they're not going to do it. There have been more businesses started in the last 12 months than there were in the previous 3. And I think what we're seeing is that people are starting to believe in themselves more and believe how technology can help them do that. So there may not be a better time to be a business owner, but the lessons are the same. You have to know your people, hire great people. You have to make sure that you have a defined process inside your business. You can't just make it up. You got to have a plan. And you have to sell a product or service that people want. You can't wing it by selling something that people don't want anymore. And you got to understand who your competition is, no matter where you're from.
Thank you, Marcos. Next question, Mariana.
Yes, from Argentina, Sebastián Tabani from MSN Latin America.
Hello, Marcos.
Hi.
How are you? How do you
How are you?
see the new trend of NFTs and cryptocurrency in terms of brick and mortar shops? And do you think that it's a trend, or is something that you are willing to maybe invest in, something that hasn't been proven yet?
Look, I think if we thought back 1 or 2 decades, we didn't believe that you would be able to have a conversation like we're having today. And I think the world of possibilities is bigger than we ever thought. And NFTs are a very difficult sort of concept for most business owners to understand. But if they have an asset or they have some sort of technology and they believe they can exploit it or monetize it legally in a different way, there's no downside of doing your research and understanding whether your brick and mortar business or whether your supply chain business should take advantage of it. In terms of accepting Bitcoin, I've started to accept it in some of my own businesses. But what I would encourage a lot of businesses to do is to get out of the business of accepting it and get into the business of signing up with platforms that allow it to be exchanged. When we walk into a store today, we use a credit card, and there's a credit card processor, which means we're not speculating or taking on any of the risk associated with the credit. I would liken cryptocurrency to the same thing. You should think about cryptocurrency as a form of payment for every single business in the world, but you should partner with a well-respected, well-secured processor of it so that you're not in the business of accepting it in your small business today and then playing this roller coaster ride of the values going up and down. I don't think small businesses can afford to take that risk, but they should do what the customer is asking for, which is be more open-minded to different currencies.
Excellent. Next question, Mariana.
Yes, from Colombia, Andrés Socio from El Tiempo newspaper.
Hi, Marcos. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Fine. Thank you for your time. When there's a big experience gained on and a good status reached on TV, how has changed the dynamic with the people you're willing to help? I mean, you're very famous. The people knows you. How changed the dynamic when you work in the series or
first of all, I think that's an excellent question. I really is. It over the 9 years that we've been making the program, I think what's changed more than anything is the expectation that people have. And we live in this world where the best entrepreneurs, the best business people, the best individuals are people who wake up every day and they work for every single thing that they have. And I've noticed that in the last few years, you get certain people that expect something to happen without putting in the effort. And I'm here to tell you that whether it's on my show or in reality, my expectation is that people put in the effort, they put in the time, they take on the risk, and they do the work. And it has changed it. I think on a positive note, and that's the most important thing, is that I'm very proud of what the show has done for young people, particularly in grade schools and high schools and universities, where they can get a real life lesson, not only about business, but about how relationships work in life. And if you really look at the show over the period that history's had it on, it's more about relationships with people than it is about dollars and cents. Of course, money is a part of it. But if you can't work with people, or you can't trust people, or you can't do certain things, then that's a problem. And I've been more inspired by the positive experiences I've had with people than been disturbed by the negative experiences. And I would encourage everybody to look at it the same way.
Great question and better answer. Thank you so much. Mariana, next.
We have Nicole Trejo from El Universal newspaper, Mexico.
Thank you. Hi, Marcus. I'm Nicole from El Universal, Mexico. It's a pleasure for me.
How are you?
I
Thank you.
want to ask you about, thank you, about what do you think is the key or the secret to the success of the profit? And what is the difference in this eighth season?
Well, I think the key is the honesty and the transparency in which we disclose things. And I think one of the biggest challenges is, a lot of people that make a television show want to have every single program end with a smiley face, as if everything's wonderful and happy. And I think all of us who are citizens of the world know that that's not how the world actually works. And I think one of the successes has been that you enter each program and you have no idea how it's going to end. You hope for the best, and you sometimes plan for the unexpected. And I think that's been a key part of it. And my willingness to be honest about what has worked and what hasn't worked, and where I fail and where I make mistakes, I think allows people to feel more connected to the reality of what's happening. I think season 8 is probably a continuation of that. But if I watch the program from season 1 to season 8, the one thing that I notice is how much I've changed, what I've learned, and how I'm taking those learnings and I'm now trying to teach what I've learned from the past and how I'm going to move forward. And so I think season 8 was one of the best seasons for me to make because I came in a little smarter. I try to get smarter every day. And I was less vulnerable, but there were more complicated situations in season 8 than there's ever been before. In fact, over the next couple of weeks, you're going to be stunned by how complicated things have gotten.
Thank you. Mariana, next question.
Yes, from Chile, Daniela Alarcón from El Mercurio newspaper.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi there.
I'm Daniela Alarcón,
How are
journalist from
you?
El Mercurio. Fine, thank you. I want to know, have you learned anything from all the businesses you have dealt with in the show that you have been able to apply in your own?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about myself. It's been a tough decade because there have been situations where I have been burned pretty badly, and I blame that on myself. But there have been other situations where I invested in people that I had low expectations for, and they surprised me. They really did perform at a higher level. And I think what I learned more than anything is you have to get to know somebody more than you think to understand what they're capable of. And ultimately, what I really believe in more than I did even when I started the show is that it's my responsibility to provide the bridge, to provide the opportunity, to give the lessons, to give the road, the path. But it is not my responsibility to put you on my shoulders and carry you down the road. And I think that is what I've learned more than anything else, because when it's time for me to leave, or it's time for me to go do something different, I have to be sure that you can walk and talk and chew gum on your own without me. And I think you'll see in season 8 that I'm doing a lot more of that. And it's probably something that's my own personal growth that I've learned how to do that.
Thank you. Mariana, next question.
Yes, Andrés Uliani from UOL, Brazil.
Hi, Mr. Lemonis. I'm Andrea Zuliani from Brazil. My question is, do you believe the pandemic has changed the way we do business forever, or it will just be temporary?
No, I believe that the pandemic has changed the way we do business forever because technology has become the center point of how we do business. And I think we learned through this process that the way we communicate with consumers or our employees is very different than we used to. A lot of us are working from home and we're learning how to run our own business from a distance. We're doing business with customers and we're having to deliver it and leave it on their doorstep, or we're having to deliver a service remotely. I think that this is, maybe it's temporary in terms of some of the things, but I think if you didn't learn in your business that technology is the center of everything going forward, I'm concerned about your ability to survive in the next 5 years, no matter what your business is.
Very interesting insight and advice.
And I'll give you just a little note. I even had some where I was not willing to take that leap. And some of those businesses didn't make it because I was too late to the party to recognize it. And I think that's the important part of El Socio is I want everybody to understand that over the decade, what worked for me and where I failed so that you don't fail.
Thank you for doing that every week with us. Next question, Mariana.
Yes, from Argentina, Clarín newspaper, Hernán Soto.
Thank you, Marco, for your time. What do you think was your worst investment, and what are the 3 most frequent mistakes that are made in company at the beginning?
What was the first question?
What do you think was your worst investment?
Wow, my worst. I don't know if we have enough time to discuss my worst investment, but what I will say is that when I go back and I study my failures, there is a common element behind those failures. And I have to take my own responsibility to a certain degree in part of that, and my ability to sometimes trust too much. What I've really worked hard on, though, is not letting the people that I should not have trusted break my spirit and break my belief in humanity. Because I truly believe that everybody deserves an opportunity, and we shouldn't let one person ruin it. And when I think about the basic principles behind what makes them work and not work, integrity is a big thing. Transparency and full disclosure of the information is another. And last, and maybe most importantly, is are you willing to put in the work, or are you expecting me to do the work?
Next question, please. Thank you.
Yes, Angie Acosta from Red Mass, Colombia.
Hi,
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I want to ask you, like,
You as well.
you have been 8 seasons talking about how to invest, how to make our own enterprises, but I want to ask you, like, people said that maybe they can be originals, like they are just copying the same models as forever. So maybe this is one of the most scary things that a person who is thinking or creating his own business. What do you say to these people?
Well, first of all, unless you're a journalist or a writer, in business, plagiarism is the highest form of flattery because it means that you are acknowledging somebody else's success and you're trying to duplicate what they're doing and hopefully do it even better. But I think before you start to think about plagiarizing or copying somebody else's business model, you have to understand the size of the market. And is the market big enough to handle another person trying to sell the same product or service? If the answer is yes, I would encourage you to put your own twist on it. So if you make, as a small example, if you make chairs and you see other people make chairs, what are you going to do to your chair that's going to make it different? And oftentimes people think that price is the single biggest differentiator, but it's not. Features and benefits. Am I going to be more comfortable? Is it going to have something I can plug into? Is it going to help me with my posture? And so if you're going to copy somebody, a successful business, you have to, one, make sure that the market can absorb your business. Two, you have a different way of communicating why somebody should try you instead of somebody else. And three, and most importantly, how do you put your own twist, your own version of something that's already good? And if you can't answer yes to those three things, then you should come up with your original idea.
Thank you, Marcus. Next question, please, Mariana.
Yes, from Brazil, Ederly Fortunato from Jornal 140.
Hi, Marcus. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
More than money, we are looking into ethical businesses. Businesses that pay fairly their employees, that they are careful about the things they buy and about pollution. What do you think of the pandemic and the ethical things coming to the business? Do you look into
So
it?
I consider myself a capitalist, which means that I love business. But more importantly, I consider myself a conscious capitalist. And what that means is that you don't make profit the primary objective. You make customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, your position in the marketplace as a good community member, your willingness to give back to the community that gives you something, your willingness to be responsible about the footprint that you take up in your market and how it affects your neighbors and your family and your friends. And I think ultimately, if you look at the longevity that are going to be the most successful, it's the ones that put their employees first. I want to make sure you heard that from me. Your employees first, your customers second, and the neighborhood and community you work in third, and profit fourth. The reason I say that is if you take care of your employees, you take care of your customers, and you take care of your community, you will have a profit. If you ignore those three things, that you may have a short-term profit, but in the end, people won't work for you, they won't shop with you, and they won't want you in their neighborhood.
Thank you. Mariana, next question, please.
Yes, Carlos Aguilón de New Time Report, Mexico.
Hello there.
Hello?
We may have lost signal. We'll come back, hopefully.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Carlos, are you
right
there?
back to the work.
Okay. So then we're going to continue with Blanca Lopez from El Resaltador, Argentina.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Blanca?
Yes, I wanted to know if you can tell us how are the differences from season to season? What are the challenges you are facing to make every season unique?
I think that there's two real answers to that question. One is the biggest difference season to season is probably me. I'm now married, and so my wife has a very big stranglehold on the things that she allows me to do and not do, which all of you can relate to. Everybody can relate to that. So I used to walk around with a checkbook, and now I walk around with a check. And so that's one big difference. I think the second thing is, and you should really study it, the businesses that come on think they're smarter than the ones that were on in the previous season. And they try to be more cute and more manipulative and more clever. And I think that they find out every single time that just as much as they think things have changed, for me, things have really changed. I feel like I'm not necessarily smarter, but I'm wiser. And as you watch this season, you'll see me make different moves than you would have seen me. In fact, we've been playing a game in our house of what would I have done if that would have happened 2 years ago. And you'll find that the answer is different this season. And when we do it again, the answer will be different again because as people, we evolve.
So Marcus, since we are in the subject, what everyone wants to know, how much Marcus, the real Marcus as a person, not a business person, have changed throughout the years and the seasons, and what is next for Marcus?
Yeah, as a business person, I've changed a little, but as a human being, I've changed a lot. I was in my 30s when I started the television program, and for those of you that are in your 30s or you have kids in your 30s, you know that when you're in your 30s and when you're 48, you're a very different person. I'm married now, and I have a different perspective on life. The pandemic definitely changed the way I think about other people and myself. I feel like I'm tougher in certain instances, and I'm kinder in other instances. And I think that's part of maturity, which happens in every business, right? Going forward, I've really decided that I wanted to change my contribution to society. And when I think about businesses in the world, there are a lot of businesses that are important to keep economies going. But there is no greater business than the business of your life and the business inside of your home. And so I've made the decision to work on the most important business of all, which is families and their homes, and really having them understand how they can look at the world differently. So in 2022, I'll be launching in America a new show called The Renovator, where I'll be renovating people's homes, their finances, their relationships, their marriages, their relationships with their kids. Because through the pandemic, we spent a lot of time with each other and we learned what worked and what didn't work. And I really believe that if we can get things right at home with our loved ones, and even if there's a problem, we can solve it. And so whether it's money or whatever it may be, I want to dedicate the next several years to getting to the root of what I found business problems came from. I think I realized that every time I went into a business, that there was a personal issue that gave them bad ideas about how they should run their business. And so I said, if I start from the beginning and I go back to where it starts when you wake up in the morning with your kids or with your family or whoever it may be, and I can get them to think differently there, I have a higher likelihood of getting them to think differently about their business.
So you are making already all these changes, and you just get married less than a year ago. If you become a parent, how much will you change or willing to change?
Look, I don't see myself ever becoming an actual parent. I have 14,000 employees, and I consider everybody else's kids my responsibility as well to make the world a better place. I operate like a parent today. In fact, if you ask my godchildren, they will tell you that I'm meaner than their parents when it comes to their report card and it comes to their chores. But I really believe that we all have the ability to contribute to society in a positive way. And I all believe that we are good people to our core, but sometimes we get exposed to things that make bad decisions. And so I'm dedicating the rest of my life to giving away the wealth that I've created, but forcing people to work for it and to earn it, to understand what's important in society.
So you went from the profit to the renovator. And also, you are working on your legacy, in your personal legacy to the world. How can you describe that legacy in few words?
So I am a very blessed individual. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. I lived in an orphanage and I was adopted by an American family. And I had the most amazing upbringing, which is why I love all of you so much. I grew up in Miami, Florida, which everybody knows is the melting pot of the world, particularly the Hispanic community. And I decided about a year ago to launch a foundation with my wife a $50 million foundation to recognize women and people of color for opportunities that they may not be able to get in other places. And I've spent a lot of that money so far, and whether that's to educating kids in high school or educating kids in university or giving women or people of color grants so they can find their own dream and they can pursue their own opportunity. As an only child with no kids, I know that my legacy won't be determined by how I pass my wealth on to my next generation, but how I share my wealth with people today that can create their own generational wealth. And some are going to do good and some are not. But I feel like the world has given me unbelievable opportunities to be sitting here today with you, and that I have an obligation through my faith and I have an obligation through my morality to give that back to people in a way where they can do something with their own lives.
You have managed in, I don't know how, that when we were thinking that we cannot admire you even more, you go always to the next level. And I think this is just fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's a great inspiration for us because we will not only see this time the businessman that we get to use to know, but now we're getting to know the human being who wants to give everything to the people who actually are going to appreciate the help. Thank you so much for being with us today. Please share with us your final words for today. And thank you so much for this inspirational, unscripted virtual press event of today.
My final words are very simple. All of you possess the power to influence the way people think about themselves and the way they think about other people. And we live in a world where opportunity is hard to get. And I think that I'm asking all of you to do what you can to inspire people through your journalism, through the good news and the bad news, that anything is possible. And, we deal with poverty and we deal with pandemics and we deal with bad things. But you do hold the golden pen to inspire people with information and ideas that can allow them to be better people and unlock themselves. And you guys have given me a gift by allowing me to share my own experiences, even my bad ones, so that people understand that anything is possible. And I encourage you to continue to do that going forward. And who knows, maybe one day the Renovator will be on the History Channel. That would be a big dream for me. So thank you so much for having me today.
Let's work on that. Thank you so much, Marcus. Until next time. Thank you so much to all the media journalists with us. Until the next time. Thank you. Gracias a todos. Muito obrigado.
Si quieres ser bueno en los negocios, solamente tienes que concentrarte en las 3 P's: personas, proceso y producto. Todo el mundo sabe que para tener un buen negocio, una buena familia o una buena comunidad, es necesario tener buenas personas, con mucha integridad, de buen carácter, con buen espíritu. Deben ser personas de fe y deben creer en algo. El segundo punto es que debes tener un buen producto. Si vendes casetes de 8 pistas, nadie estará interesado. Necesitas un buen producto que sea relevante. Y el último punto es el proceso. No solo cómo vendes el producto a tu cliente, sino la forma en que tus empleados fabrican el producto, cómo lo exhiben, cómo lo mercadean y cómo comunican el producto. Así que, bien sea que tengas un concesionario, una floristería o una heladería, las personas deben ser buenas, el producto debe ser relevante y accesible, y el proceso de fabricación y venta debe ser el adecuado.